.360 cameras really shine when you're traveling to awesome locations, and with a bit of creativity thrown in, you can end up with some amazing looking shots like the ones you just saw. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the process of how I shot and edited these 10 shots so you can replicate them on your next vacation. Big thanks to Insta360 for sponsoring this video, and while all shots from the video were shot with the X5, which I'll link below, you can also achieve the exact same effects using any 360 camera, past, present, or future. You can also edit all 10 shots on either desktop or mobile in the Insta360 apps. However, I'll be using the desktop software because it's easier for you to watch back on YouTube and follow what I'm doing. Filming this shot was super easy. All I did was put my camera over the edge of the boat here at Lake Zurich in Switzerland and filmed for about 60 seconds to allow enough time to pass for the flag to look cool, the water to look cool, and so on. Now here in Insta360 Studio, I have my clip imported, and as usual, I'm going to turn on the guides here, which will help us create more symmetrical shots. So for all of these shots, make sure you do that. The reframing of this shot is pretty simple. All I did was just scrub across the timeline until I found a section that I liked, which started around here, and then I added a keyframe by just right-clicking the mouse in the middle of the viewer. You do have a few different options for the field of view. You can make it super close or super wide. I found the best place to start was about here, with the boat dominating the bottom half of frame. Then I played the clip forward to the point that I want this shot to end, which is going to be about here. I'm going to right-click the screen again, which will automatically add a keyframe. But this time, after clicking on the keyframe down here, I'm going to zoom out. That looks good. It's not a big zoom out, but it's enough, if we watch this back, to create the sense of movement, like the boat is traveling away from the camera, and that made the shot work extra well. By the way, I graded this shot with one of my free Insta360 cinematic LUTs, which I'll link below, which are simple one-click presets that you can apply in DaVinci Resolve or whichever editor you use that allows LUTs. Filming this one was pretty straightforward. I put the camera out the window of the gondola and tried my best to center the camera right in the middle of the gondola so the final shot would look symmetrical. Now with this shot, editing again was super simple. All I did was just reframed here in Insta360 Studio, setting my first keyframe kind of in a close-up of the gondola. So I'm right-clicking, and that has added my first keyframe. The gondola is looking nice and centered. Now I'm going to play the clip forward again, and I'm also going to add a zoom out. So I'll do that about here. So I'm going to zoom out, right click. As you can see, we've got 1, 2 keyframes. And now when we play it back, it creates a nice smooth zoom out as the gondola moves. And that's something that I think works really well with 360 footage. If you've got movement like the boat or the gondola, and it's already going in one direction, adding another simple camera movement in editing like a zoom in or out makes the shot feel more cinematic and exciting. And you'll notice that practically every shot in this video follows the same formula of camera movement in real life combined with camera movement in editing. Now, firstly, this location was amazing. St. Stephen's Basilica in Budapest is like one of those amazing places that will totally take your breath away. And what I did to film this one was I did my best to walk in a straight line from one side of the basilica to the other, knowing that I was going to pass perfectly underneath the dome roof. And since the light was a bit lower here, I shot in pure video mode at 8K resolution. Here's my final shot, and wow, oh my God, that just looks so good. And again, what we're going to do is combine the movement I did there in real life with a little bit of post-production movement. So I'm going to start the shot on like a diagonal angle, trying my best to center the dome. since that really is the focus here. And that's looking good. Now I'm going to play the clip forward to the point that I've passed the circle just a little bit because we don't want this to drag on for too long. That looks good. So I'm going to right click with my mouse to add a keyframe, but instead of like manually dragging this and hoping that the spin looks good, instead what I'm going to do is I'll manually click the keyframe I just created and I'm going to adjust the rotation slider so it rotates nicely. And now I'll just do a final lineup with the mouse, because if you want really good symmetry in such a symmetrical location like this, you don't want to leave it to chance. When I play this shot back, you'll see that the rotation spins perfectly and that crosshair is pretty nicely locked on the center of the dome. Although you can obviously go back and edit a keyframe if you feel like it needs to move a little bit more. And yeah, I'm really happy with that. If you ever travel Europe, you are going to see more churches than you ever knew existed. And even if you're not religious, like I can say I'm not super religious myself, but these are the most amazing locations for photography and video, assuming you actually are allowed to film there. So again, if you're ever on a Europe trip, definitely check out the major basilicas and churches because they will be amazing locations for 360. To film this shot, I set the frame rate to 60 FPS so I could slow it down later and held the camera just above the ground in front of me and walked for about 10 meters. Now here in Insta360 Studio, I've set my first keyframe and viewpoint to highlight this amazing Gothic church in Prague. Then to create the movement effect, I played the clip forward a little bit and I'm going to finish on a footstep here. So I'll right click to add a keyframe. And with this, I'm also going to zoom out to create that second level of movement that will make the shot even more exciting while also tilting up a bit to just keep myself nice and centered. So I'll play that back and see how it looks. Yeah, that's pretty good. But at normal speed, it's just kind of an average shot, right? Well, this is where the magic of 60 FPS comes into play. So I'm going to click the time shift option and drag that across the timeline in between the two keyframes. And now I'm going to drag the slider down to half, which will slow down this shot by 50%. Now, when I play the clip back, I'm moving towards camera, but it's also zooming out simultaneously, creating a really nice sense of movement around the ground. This one was also filmed in Prague at Charles Bridge and similar premise to the previous shot, except this time I'm holding the camera behind me, which is actually a lot safer than it looks, especially if you've got a good grip on the selfie stick. But I'm essentially doing my best to hold the camera about 10 to 20 centimeters above the ground and walk forward along the bridge for about 10 or 15 seconds. Now here in editing, I'm going to do the opposite of what I did in the last shot. So this time I've created my first keyframe, but I'm starting here on the wide shot. I'm going to play the clip forward until I want it to end, which is going to again be on the footstep here. I'm going to right click to add my second keyframe, but this time I'm zooming way in, going to tilt the shot up a bit so I'm nice and centered. And again, I'm going to add the 0.5 times speed like so. And watching it back, there we go. I'm moving forwards while the camera is also moving forwards. And this creates a different feel yet again. So you can really combine any two different kinds of movement, whether it's in real life or in editing. And that's really what I've found has taken my shots from good to great. So this one was shot at Grindelwald First Cliff Walk in Switzerland, and I just want to pause here and say, if you've got a bucket list and you don't have this place on your list, you absolutely should add it. It was one of the absolute most memorable, epic places you could possibly visit, especially if you're a photography or video enthusiast. Anyway, filming this shot was as straightforward as you can get. I recorded with my camera on the selfie stick above my head and walked along the bridge, trying my best not to look down or drop the camera. Now here in Insta360 Studio, going with my two movement theory, we already know that the first movement is me walking from the top of screen to the bottom of screen, but the second movement I got a bit more creative, and when I set my first keyframe here, I angled it because the plan was to rotate this to kind of, not deliberately, but maybe a little bit, give my audience a sense of vertigo. So as I play this clip along, I'm going to choose my second keyframe, which will be about here. I'm right clicking to add the second keyframe. Now again, I want this movement to be precise, so I'm going to manually change it here. And all I'm doing is rotating until I'm happy with the final frame. I'm going to test that out and see how it looks. And wow, yeah, that is really, really cool. Now, sometimes you'll also find a location that looks so damn good that no matter how you reframe it, it's just going to look awesome. And this was one of those places. As you can see, I was able to reframe this exact same shot in multiple different ways, and each of them was a banger. And this is why I love 360 video, because a bit of creativity later in editing can totally transform your shot from good to, oh my God, that was amazing. This one was also shot at Grindelwald first, at this really cool spot that people line up for to get their 20 seconds to get an amazing shot so they can post it on Instagram. And you know I made the most of my 20 seconds. So what I did was I held my camera over the edge and then raised it up above me, waving to the camera while I did it. Slow motion was important here in making this shot more cinematic, so I did shoot at 60 FPS. All right, here I am, and my first viewpoint, you might not have noticed this, but I actually started really close. And the reason for that is that this is a location reveal shot, meaning you don't reveal it in the very first frame. So I'm deliberately hiding it by zooming in. I'm setting my first keyframe. Now I'm going to play the clip forward until I'm at the top, which looks like it's about here. So now I'm going to add my second keyframe and zoom right out, like to a tiny planet, which is as wide as you can possibly get. And now it transitions between a close shot and a wide shot. Only thing left to do is add the 0.5 times speed, as I did before, which will make our shot a little bit longer and more cinematic. Nice. So if you've ever got an awesome location that is beneath you, try the location reveal idea. Here I am in Vienna at the Hofburg Palace, and to get this shot, I ran with my camera close to the ground and slowly elevated it, kind of like a drone taking off. Now here in editing, my first shot started super wide because wide shots really accentuate any ground movement underneath you. As I play that forward, you'll see that looks really cool. Then for the second keyframe, I zoomed in to the point that the whole building was in shot. So not only do you have this forwards movement of the camera, but I've also hidden a zoom in while that happens, which finishes about here. And then for my third keyframe, since like if you look down, I'm at the edge here, there's nowhere else for me to move. So I couldn't keep going even if I tried. So what I did was for my third keyframe, I just zoomed in. That's it. And if we play it forward, it looks like the camera is still flying. I'll bet you didn't pick that. Now with the walking time lapse, you can either hold the camera in front of or behind you. It doesn't really matter. Like you just want to make sure you walk for at least a couple of minutes. That way you'll have plenty of footage to speed up into a hyperlapse. Now in editing, I'm going to set my frame so I'm perfectly centered, and that looks good as the first keyframe. Then I'm going to skip to the end and adjust the viewpoint so I'm back in the middle, because it can move, especially if you're going through locations that aren't perfectly straight. And as I skip along the timeline, it looks like I'm staying pretty centered, which is great. Now, a big mistake you don't want to make here is using the tracking feature, because this software does have a great feature where you can like literally track yourself and it will keep you perfectly centered in the middle of frame, which is fine for normal shots, but don't forget we're speeding this footage up substantially. And when the camera's locked on you, it's going to move with your movements. Whereas setting these two keyframes is going to keep the horizon perfectly level across the whole clip. So now all there is left to do, you guessed it, is add the speed effect. So I'm going to select the portion I want to speed up, and I'm going to go up to 16 times. You want to make sure the motion ND effect is on, and voila, we have a walking hyperlapse. Here I am at the Hungarian Parliament building, and again with the camera on a selfie stick above my head, I did my best to circle myself around the landmark. And with something this big, it's actually really hard to do this in a way that is smooth. And sometimes you just got to guess what the smoothest path would be and do your best to follow it. However, this can be hard in public, especially when you've got tourists and crowds of people getting in your way, which will inevitably cause you to move and the shot to look bumpy. Whereas here, what I did the entire time was follow the outline of the train track. So this kind of acted like a path to follow that would practically guarantee that I ended up with a smooth movement. In total, I ended up with roughly a 5-minute clip. And the key with this one is matching the framing across the entire clip. And to do that, you want to set your first keyframe and hone in on a specific thing that you can use as your reference. And for me, I'm making it the top spike of the Parliament building. And then with every keyframe I made going forward, I made sure that spike lined up perfectly with my grid lines. And I made a mental note that it was this far above this horizontal grid line. I then created new keyframes several times along this timeline to make sure the spike was still in the same spot. As you can see, this one ended up with about 7 or 8 keyframes total, but the spike was always centered. So no matter what your landmark is, you'll just want to choose a point of reference and keep that at the exact same spot in the grid lines. The only thing left to do now is speed it up just like before, except this time because I'm working with more footage, I'm going to speed it up to 32 times, which brings the final clip down to 7 seconds. And you want to experiment with motion blur. Sometimes the motion ND effect works great, and sometimes it kind of ruins the shot. So after trying both, I saw that without motion blur was actually the better choice in this specific location, but it won't always be. So always make sure you experiment with different variations so you can end up with the best shot possible with the best editing choices possible. Hope you enjoyed the video and that it gave you some inspiration for next time you go traveling and you've got your 360 camera, whatever it may be. A little bit of creativity can go a long way. And if you want to know my exact workflow for both shooting and editing quickly while I'm traveling, in this video here, I share my top tips for getting awesome shots while you're on holiday to minimize wasted time and maximize time actually enjoying your holiday.